Welcome. Well, you are at home with Jim and Joy, and we thank you for inviting us in to your home today. You are an important part of our EWTN family, and we would love to hear from you. So today, give us a jingle during this live broadcast at 1-800-221-9460. If you're calling and you're outside of North America, you can reach us at area code 205-271-2980. You can always send us an email, jimandjoy@ewtn.com. Well, today we're going to have a wonderful guest. Her name is Leila Miller, and she will be here. She is the author of a great book. It's called Primal Loss: The Now Adult Children of Divorce Speak. And it's a voice in our culture that has been silenced and has not been given permission to speak. So today we're going to talk about that. You could go to a blog that she has. It's called littlecatholicbubble.blogspot.com. So if you want to get in the conversation with Leila, you can do that. littlecatholicbubble.blogspot.com.
You did that so well.
I tried.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I didn't even get prep time. It was good.
But we want to give a little sharing and a little plug today to one of our 16 grandchildren, and that's Sophia Robinson. And Sophia, you know, all those grandkids have their own unique personality.
Yes, they do.
Some of them are really laid back and more introspective, and others just more outgoing. But, you know, they could change it up on you when you least expect it. And that's what happened with Sophia Robinson, right?
Yes.
Because Sophia is not really given that much to public displays of moving about and dancing in public or whatever it is. At our anniversary, our 40-year anniversary, we had all the children at the anniversary, and we were dancing with them, but Sophia was the least likely to dance.
Well, before the anniversary, she was really having anxiety attacks because she said to her parents she didn't know how to dance.
Right.
And she was really being anxious about, how am I going to dance? I don't know how to dance. Well, all of a sudden, in the middle of the party, Sophia just explodes out onto the dance floor.
Mm-hmm. Well, why don't you share about what was it, a pep rally that took place? She was not supposed to be a part of the pep rally. She's just a little, how old is she?
She is 5.
She's 5 years old, so this pep rally is like for junior high and high school kids.
It was a homecoming for the high school and the junior high. And so the high school came to the middle school and to the elementary school to have, you know, a homecoming. And they have a beautiful campus. Anna teaches there at the junior high. And so the bands came, the fire department, you know, the police, the whole spiel. Well, Sophia decides very randomly to just be a part of the majorettes.
She crashed
the
public march. She crashed the majorettes. She crashed this pep rally. She was not supposed to be in the pep rally. So when family saw her, this kid that not given to public displays of dancing and being out there, kind of introverted, all of a sudden she's marching, right?
She said right then and there she wanted to be a majorette, and so she became a part of
She's
the
the little
team.
one with the white shirt on there.
Yes, so she just got in there. Now her mother was on the campus and she saw Sophia marching with, and she was like pretending like she knew all the steps. She had her hands on her hips and she was doing all the stepping thing. It was just crazy.
Precious.
It was
precious.
wild.
Children are precious, and not so much about what the show is today. We also wanted to mention a very special event that recently took place and that we aired on EWTN. It's the Berlin March for Life. We covered it on EWTN. They're in Germany. The first time live on any television channel in Germany, it's usually ignored by the media there. But EWTN brought it forth. It was held September 16th. More than 7,500 people were in attendance, standing for life, standing for the unborn, helping women in crisis pregnancy. And hopefully this will be a growing tradition in the great nation of Germany. But Joy, the movement, the pro-life movement is growing stronger and stronger, of course, in the United States of America. We're right in the midst of 40 Days for Life. And we have a great March for Life here every year. 500,000 people or so gather together to give a face to the faceless, a voice to the voiceless. And this is happening all over the world.
Yes, because the culture of life is coming out and speaking and making their presence known. And 40 Days for Life is all over the world too. So 40 Days for Life is happening. Continue to pray for those people that are out there in front of Planned Parenthood all over the world. And when we come back, we will hear from William Thomas. Now, he is a professor of Mariology at Newman College in Ireland, and he has a few words of wisdom for us on this 100th anniversary of the apparitions of Our Lady of Fatima. So we're going to have a wonderful show. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
My name is William A. Thomas. I'm Professor of Mariology at Newman College in Ireland. I'm also a member of the Pontifical Marian Academy. And today I wish to speak to you about Fatima. The apparitions of Our Lady in Fatima in 1917 are considered to be the most dramatic and urgent of all authentic and approved Marian apparitions to date. The calls to prayer, adoration, sacrifice, and reparation are the constant appeals of Our Lady to the 3 young children from Al-Justral in Fatima, who saw her on the 13th of each month from May through October of that year, except for August when she appeared on the 19th of that month due to the imprisonment of the children by the civil authorities. Jacinta de Jesus Marto was only 7 years old when she first saw Our Lady, along with her 9-year-old brother Francisco and their first cousin Lucia de Jesus dos Santos, the oldest of them at 10. The theology of Mary, rich in its Trinitarian, Christological, and Mariological dimensions, is even today woven into a language of simplicity capable of being understood by children as young as 7, and it has transcended time and is as relevant today as it was 100 years ago. The message that God is already too much offended by man's sins is a prelude to the profound analysis of where man now stands before God, and where Our Lady says that more souls go to hell because of sins of the flesh. That is, the 7 deadly sins, greatly elucidated by St. Paul in the New Testament. To save them, God wishes to establish devotion in the world to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. The vision of hell given to the children was a sign of God's mercy for us today, as He does not want us to go there. Rather, it should propel us to that rightful worship, the primacy of God, and only then will the Immaculate Heart will be our refuge and the way that will lead us to God.
Welcome back. Well, thank you, William, for that beautiful sharing. And we'd like to thank our Blessed Mother and how she taught us all about the beauty of children and life and how she welcomed our Lord. Well, you are an important part of our EWTN family. And today, if you have a question for our guest, Leila Miller, you can give us a jingle right here during a live broadcast at 1-800-221-9460. If you're outside North America, you can reach us at 205-271-2980, and you can always send us an email, jimandjoy@ewtn.com, and hopefully we'll use your question or your comment right here on the air. Well, today I bring to you a beautiful woman, mother of many, and she's going to tell you all about herself. Her name is Leila Miller, and she's the author of a book called Primal Loss: The Now Adult Children of Divorce Speak. She has a great little blog called littlecatholicbubble.blogspot.com. Sounds fun. Well, Leila, we want to welcome you to At Home with Jim and Joy.
Thank you so much.
And we thank you for your great work in hearing the hearts of many in our culture, and that you get to tell their story. But before we delve into that book, why don't you tell our family a little bit about Leila, where you came from, who you are, and who you belong to.
Right. So I'm Leila Miller. I just turned 50. I don't mind saying that. I am originally, I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and right now I live in Phoenix after a little stint in Boston for college and then Atlanta for a while. Married to Dean Miller. He's wonderful. We've been married 27 years. Wonderful. We have 8 children, 6 boys and 2 girls. 3 of them are married. We have 5 grandchildren, actually 6 because 1 is in utero, and we find out today if that is a boy or a girl.
That's exciting.
And
6 boys, 2 girls.
6 boys,
Yeah.
2 girls. I grew up with 1 sister, so this is completely, this boy thing was very new to me, trust me. But, and one of my daughter's birthdays today, so Priscilla, happy
Praise the
birthday. And my daughter Cecily and her husband, the anniversary today, so happy anniversary, Cecily and Carter. Anyway, so I had to get that out of the way. But I'm a revert. I guess I call myself a revert. About 23 or 24 years ago, I figured out my faith, finally, after just about leaving. My mother told me, find out what you're leaving before you leave it. So very wise words. And with the help of EWTN was a big part of coming back to the faith. And then my husband, who was agnostic Jewish, he converted to the faith shortly thereafter of his own volition. And at that time we had 3 kids, and we proceeded to have 5 more boys. And our youngest is 7 years old. So I have a first grader.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so
you're a busy woman. So when and where did you have time to write a book?
Well, the amazing,
or even do a blog spot?
Yeah. I always say, you know, I have very few talents, and this is the truth. I'm not being, you know, falsely humble. But the one talent I do have, I believe, that I got from God was a talent for writing and communication with the written word. So I always say, woe to anyone who doesn't use their gifts that God gave them for the kingdom. So I finally, after years of mostly just being, you know, a stay-at-home mom, which is what I always wanted to do, be a wife and a mom, I started a blog. And that blog has kind of blossomed into other things, and then, of course, into writing.
Leila, how about your parents in terms of their own marriage? Tell us how many about them.
They're, what are we, September? So next month, they'll celebrate their 53rd anniversary. My parents are wonderful. They, you know, had the philosophy of marriage is for life. I mean, there's no divorce. And so I look at them now, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for their witness, because even when I was a lapsed Catholic going into my marriage, I knew, and I didn't even, like I said, I married a Jewish man. I didn't even marry a Catholic, but at the time, I knew from the example of my parents, this was permanent. This is for life. And so we've never wavered from that philosophy.
So you've got a history of, right, so it's 75 years or so of solid marriage. Your parents, your marriage,
and their parents as well, the grandparents, absolutely.
Hundreds of years
Yes.
of marriage, following through on the commitment, on the vows made. And yet you write a book called Primal Loss, The Now Adult Children of Divorce Speak.
Right.
So how did a nice, solid, married girl like you in generations, why write a book on this reality? It's not just an issue, it's a reality of the impact upon children of divorced families. Yeah,
it's a great question, and it's one that I've asked myself a few times because it wasn't on my radar. I've been teaching the faith for many years, and I taught a lot about marriage and human sexuality and just the doctrine of the faith, but I had never touched upon divorce. And so here I am many years later, all of a sudden writing something that's foreign to me, and I can only attribute it to the Holy Spirit who placed this on my heart. But the genesis was talking to my friend Alicia Hansen, and I dedicate the book partially to her, and also the people in the book and to the Blessed Mother. But Alicia and I just had a friendship. We were just like any 2 girlfriends. We talked, and over the course of a couple of years, I noticed that she would sometimes talk about the complications in her life due to the divorce of her parents when she was 9 years old. She's in her 40s now. She's married with 6 kids. And I thought, oh gosh, that's something I don't have to deal with. That's interesting. And it would come up periodically. So over the course of a couple of years, I thought, you know, this is heavy on her somewhere still deep inside. And so I told her, maybe you should think of writing something, write your story. And she's like, oh, you know, maybe I will. And she never actually ended up doing that. So I didn't want to let it lie. So I took to my Facebook page and my blog, and I said, is there anyone else out here who's an adult child of divorce who would like to answer some of my questions? And I thought maybe I'd just throw out this little questionnaire to these people and then maybe make an ebook out of it, just to make people aware that, gosh, it looks like people are really struggling with some pain even into their adult years. And I was just blown away in the first couple days of getting that questionnaire out there, or saying, I have this questionnaire, would you like to respond? I had about 100 people in 2 days say, I will talk. I want it to be anonymous, but I will talk. And so I eventually took 70 of those people. A lot of them couldn't get through the questionnaire. It was just too emotional for them. So they said, we'll just have to let someone else speak for us. And I just compiled all the answers together. And I knew once I got those answers, it was so heartbreaking and so much deeper than I ever imagined. I knew that I had to give a bigger voice than just an ebook. I knew I had to put it in a book, and then get the word out, because nobody talks about this. I had no idea. I'm 50 years old. I had no idea that people walk around all around us in this culture with these types of wounds, and they don't speak. They can't speak on it. And I just want everyone to know that.
Yes. Obviously, your book is written for them to have a voice, and we can share in a little bit why don't they have a voice? Aren't they bold enough to have a voice? Aren't they allowed to have a voice? So it's obviously written for them, but who else could benefit? Who else is this book written for?
It's a great question. It's written for the parents who have divorced as well as the children. Whether that person is an abandoned spouse, and those abandoned spouses are also victims of divorce, or if it's the parent who caused the divorce or who left. If we are going to get to any place of healing in this culture, especially surrounding marriage and parental and children, their relationships surrounding divorce, they have to understand what hidden pain is still there even decades later, so that they can have this conversation. Because there's a lot of strain between the parents who are divorced and the children, and sometimes I don't think the parents are even aware that there is this turmoil in their children. So this is a book for all the parents as well, to look and see what might be still going on in their children's lives, in their hearts and souls. And it is eye-opening. So I've already had people who've come back and said, I had no idea that my child suffered like this. And there have been reconciliations, there have been healings, there have just been good conversations that have come out of this. So it's a very good book for people who have divorced. It's also good for people who are married to spouses who are children of divorce, because sometimes we don't understand our spouses who have gone through that experience if we're from an intact family. So it helps them understand their spouse better.
Yes.
We
were speaking about that in the green room, that being, Joy and I have done a lot of guidance and counseling, especially with premarital people when I served as a minister in another tradition. And we've done a lot of work in this area of pro-life and abortion and the need for healing. But we never really addressed, on our form, and we do have a form, for people when they come in for counseling, we didn't address that issue of abortion. And so finally, a good person recommended to me saying, why don't you put a line in that says, have you experienced pregnancy loss of any kind? And deal with the guy, deal with the woman coming in, deal with them separately, let them share their story if there's been a miscarriage or a stillbirth or an abortion. Because this plays huge. This wound, this deep, emotional, sexual, sensual wound plays huge, and we're not addressing it at all. And then these people go into their marriages with this secret or with whatever's going on, and it's impacting their relationship. And I'm wondering, is this similar to this whole divorced area? Are people doing counseling even asking the question, did you suffer, or were you a part of a family that was fractured by divorce? Because we've got to address the implications for this. And what I'm hearing from you is, it's another thing like abortion. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about it in the church very much. And the people out in the world, it's kind of like, well, in some situations, I remember this talk show, this person had been divorced 7 times, and there was a therapist on with them. They're doing this talk show, and the person who had the 7 divorces was commended for taking each relationship as far as she could and understanding the maturity of that and ending the divorces well and going on to the next relationship. I know that's extreme, and I know that there may be some cases way out on the periphery, even within the church, where the church would say for safety reasons or legal reasons, maybe this has to take place. Still, your marriage, as far as the church is concerned, is intact. But you have to take that, so maybe there are some cases like that. We want to say we understand that. But is it a similar thing in terms of the counseling situation and so on? We just, that's happened, and this is a part of our culture, and we just need to move on.
Well, I think that's the expectation. I think the expectation for the child is that once the divorce happens, children are resilient. If the parents are happy, then the child will be happy, and everyone, this is for the best, and everyone's going forward. I've heard parents say that, everyone's just moving forward. Well, that doesn't happen for the child. And so you have someone who's now growing up with all sorts of issues, all sorts of issues. And then they're expected to go into a marriage one day and be healthy in that relationship. And so what we're finding is, with the exception of, there was one lady in there who I believe either she or her marriage prep person, the priest, may have noticed that she had issues from the divorce of her parents. And she put the brakes on for a while. They worked on that for a few months, and it was very wonderful to get those things addressed. But generally speaking, I don't remember, going through marriage prep, anyone saying, well, your parents divorced. Or it was just kind of, kids are expected to be okay with it. And I thought that too. I always thought that, well, the children of divorce that I know, it was a one-time sort of trauma, but then they learned how to it was their new normal, and it's just how they went along. It's just their life, and it was no big deal.
Which is very similar. I don't want to keep bringing up this other issue and reality, abortion. But there are really parallels, because we have almost 60 million abortions in our country, and we deal day in and day out. We probably had 5 or 6 people coming to our center, a pro-life center, but for some reason they think it's an abortion center. 5 or 6 people coming today thinking they want an abortion, and giving their various reasons. They really don't want that, but they're sharing about how this would be best, best for them, maybe even best for their child and so on, and rationalizing this. And maybe even the extended family saying, this is in the best interest and so on, and we're all going to move on. This is all going to be okay. It's not okay for the child, obviously, in abortion. You're saying, from listening to maybe over 100 people, and you took 70 of these people that were willing to share, and asking them questions. I guess these are the questions. Tell me if I'm wrong or right, but you're saying, what was the effect of the divorce on your life? Feelings as a child versus feelings as an adult. What's your view of marriage? This is adult children who have experienced the divorce of their parents. Are children resilient? Because we always hear that. They're resilient, they'll get along.
Oh, yes.
Speak to your parents then and now. I guess you're saying then, like when you were that child.
If you were a child, if you could go back and speak to them then versus what would you say today?
What should society know? The role of faith in healing to those facing divorce, what would you say? And then you list the contributors. So now, for like 8 chapters or so, you don't even write anything.
No.
Okay, so it's really, that's why you say you edited this. So you're saying like for 8 chapters with these questions, you got the questions, and then these people are responding anonymously, and I guess you have the numbers of the person who's saying something. Share with us about some of these questions and what the responses are, because I was really taken back. We were taken back by what we were reading, because for a lot of these people, it's like it's happening now. It's really raw.
And it's wreckage.
They give some...
It's wreckage. It's wreckage.
Tell us what you found.
It is. Well, it's very raw. It's very still real, very still painful, very similar. That was the thing. You have all these different demographics, men, women, young, old, abusive divorces, abusive relationships versus the good divorce, the clean divorce. And yet the feelings were so similar, and the long-lasting effects were so similar. And some of the contributors have told me that they would be reading a paragraph or someone's entry and they thought it was theirs. And then they got to the number and they realized that wasn't me. But someone for the first time thinks what I think, feels what I feel, went through what I went through. And that in itself is very shocking, but it's very freeing because they don't feel so isolated.
Some of them use such powerful illustrations. And again, this isn't like, we're not trying to heap condemnation upon people who've gone through, but we need to hear from these children.
We have to hear from them.
And like one of them said, what happened in my parents' divorce for me was like this incredible tree with all these roots, and it was just picked up out of the ground, and all the roots of who we are, and my roots in my family, my roots in my my parents, they're just dangling out there. You just uprooted everything, and to hear that and to see that and to say, I've never heard anybody, a child of divorce, ever say anything like that, is really difficult to hear, but it's the reality of their world and of their truth. And if we're ever going to get out of a divorce culture, we need to hear these things and the ramifications and the implications of this. Let's pause at this point. It's Leila Miller. The book is Primal Loss, The Now Adult Children of Divorce Speak. littlecatholicbubble.blogspot.com is where you can find her blogging place. We want to hear from you. We want you to be a part of this show. We want you to know that you have a voice wherever you are in this. Maybe you're in a divorce situation, or you're thinking about divorce, or you went through a divorce and you didn't want a divorce, or you were the one that led the way on divorce. You're a child of divorce and you need to share. You can email us or you can give us a call. We'll be right back. More to come. We have hope in the midst of the sharing too, and faith. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Welcome back. Well, remember that we want you to be a part of this live show. So if you have a question for Leila, give us a jingle during the live broadcast at 1-800-221-9460. If you're outside of North America, you can reach us at area code 205-271-2980, and you can always send us an email, jimandjoy@ewtn.com. We're having a wonderful conversation with Leila Miller, and we're talking about her book called Primal Loss. And she's really bringing to us, as a culture, the need for adult children of divorce to speak out. Well, we're going to go straight to the phone lines because we have Peg on the line. And Peg, we want to welcome you to At Home with Jim and Joy. Peg, are you there?
Yes, thank you very much. I love your program. And, when you say your family, you're the only family I have right now. Recently, my husband passed away, and we were married 33 years. We had a great marriage. We had these 3 stepchildren, and by God's grace, he reconciled with them, and I thought we did too after his death. But then I got a letter how one hates me, and then the rest stopped calling, and I don't know how to... they're all baptized Catholic, and I'm praying for them. I don't know what else to do.
Thank you so much for your call and for sharing with us.
That's so sad. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I have found, and I've asked the contributors privately even after this book, because you get a lot of reaction to a book like this when it comes out.
Yeah.
And the one thing that you could do possibly is just to, because you weren't part of that divorce, is just to acknowledge, maybe in a written letter, maybe if a phone call is too hard, just acknowledge that they had pain from that divorce. The acknowledgement alone, without any excuses like, but your dad needed to do this, or but just the acknowledgement that a divorce, regardless of whether or not it was one of these hard cases or not. Yeah. For the child, it's the same pain because it is still an explosion of their foundation and their family. And so even if you're the stepmother coming in and you got caught up in all this stuff, because that's what happens to a child when that family unit is blown apart. Just that acknowledgement that I'm sorry that there was an injustice to you. I'm sorry that happened to you as a child. And if you just leave it at that, I pretty much guarantee you that's going to touch them somewhere inside, and their feelings will lessen. Those feelings of...
I think that's excellent and wise. The acknowledgement to children of divorce, which they have no part in, although some of them feel like they really do, no part in making it happen.
Yeah, it's not their
and
sin.
to say, you know what, you've experienced an injustice, because that's a huge part of what's going on in terms of the pain in this situation for the children of divorce, for a number of scenarios and cases. Now we have so-called marriages where there's two moms, you know, two dads, and the children are like, you know, if they get to speak, they're going to say, you know, a lot of them say, I feel ripped off. Like, I need a mom, I need a dad, and you tell me I'm, you know, just get along, you know, without it. It's an injustice. It's an injustice to children. Abortion is an injustice to children. Divorce is an injustice to children. You know, same-sex marital relationships, it's an injustice to children. Cohabitation, having children, it's an injustice to children. Your children are sacred and beautiful, same as all children, but they have a right to be conceived within the covenant of marriage and to be irreplaceable and permanent, that relationship and our relationship. That's the vow of marriage, and it didn't happen for you, and you can't even talk about it. So I think you're saying acknowledge the injustice, acknowledge how difficult it must be to have a parent, to have a mother, and then she's with another man, or a man with another woman, and I'm just supposed to say, I'm really happy for you all, but I used to see you two sleeping together, my dad, and now you're sleeping with this other person, as far as I'm concerned. I get you think it's your husband, or it is your husband, but you know what? You're sleeping with another man. You're sleeping with another, that's what it looks like to me. Is that what's going on?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think, and the church says that there is a natural right of children to have what you said, which is to be a product of the marital union of their parents. And so when that doesn't occur, then, I mean, think about that. It's a natural right. It's a right given by God that was somehow, for some reason, stripped from that child. And a divorce, we have to always remember, a divorce is not like a death where it's an involuntary leaving of a parent. A divorce is either one or both parents have committed a sin of divorce, of ripping that family apart because of maybe other sins or whatever. But the child doesn't have anything to do with that. But a divorce always is at least one person has sinned, at least one of the parents, one of the adults. And so, you know, again, in the case of an abandoned spouse, you have an extra victim too. You have the child, but the children are always the victims, no matter what. So if there's no acknowledgement of that, and if the acknowledgement is only, well, it's for the best, you know, and we're, you know, we just wanted everyone to be happy, and this is how we're going to be happy as a family. This is how we have to go forward. You have completely negated this child's natural right from God in his or her psyche, in his or her soul. And so the acknowledgement is huge.
But, you know, I think one of the things you pegged with Sharon, what children of divorce always long for is that if the mom, say the mom didn't remarry, that they would have gotten back together, right? And so sometimes they see that other spouse as the intruder because if just as long as my dad or mom's alive, I'm hoping that they're gonna get back together, even if that happened when they were a child to their adult life.
Yes.
I had a sister who had a divorce, and it was the first divorce in our family. And I had said, what is it like? What is it like? And she said, like you shared, it would have been better if he died. She said, it's like I've had half my body sewn in half and I'm bleeding to death. And I was just like, how do you respond to someone's pain? You're just like, oh my gosh, you know? But that's what, and then people are walking around feeling like that, and then the children. So how can a mother then minister to children?
She's in survival mode herself. She's barely hanging
How do you
on.
do damage control? You know?
What? Tell us, you know, you're kind of, tell us what they actually are saying. Give us their voice on how this impacts them, how this affects them. I mean, I could throw out a number of things in terms of what I'm thinking, but what do they actually say about the difference this has made in my life, my relationships, what I think about marriage, what I think about commitment, what I think about the faith, what I think about, you know, what are they saying?
It has just thrown it all up into the air and landing, you know, in chaos, because basically, you know, there's an inability to feel comfortable with commitment. There are abandonment issues, which are huge. So even if they go on to marry a saint, which some of them have, they say, my husband's a saint. And yet I squirreled away money for the first 10 years because I just was waiting for him to leave me. Or one lady said, I have served my husband with divorce papers 4 or 5 times, even though he would never leave me, and we have a good, he's a good man, but I just don't know how to deal with conflict, because when conflict leads to permanent separation and that's all you know, then you think that's what's going to happen to you too. Right. There are identity issues. Who am I? Who's my family? Who am I supposed to be? This person with this half of the family and this person with the other half of the family? And I can't be my full self with either one, because it's not, this half isn't acceptable to that half. And that goes on into their 50s. I know one lady in her 50s who's still trying to figure out who she is to each side of the family. You have this pervasive sadness that they have. A lot of people, don't feel like they have a home to go to. Where's my home? I mean, I know where my home is. It's down on, Sorrel Lane in Scottsdale. My parents are there, and it's not something that's on my mind. It's not a burden that I have to even think about. And yet they're like, where's home? And even Christmas, or, who do I text first? Whose house do I go to?
Who has my allegiance?
Who has my allegiance? And I'm going to offend someone if I don't do the right thing in the right order. And it's just, there's so much complication is what it gets to. And then just the floating out there, not knowing where you belong. Or
Joy, let's take this email.
It says, secular culture tries to develop all types of rules and regulations for the protection of the children. We must always look out for the children. Why does the culture suddenly fall silent when it comes to divorce, and it suddenly becomes about the adults and not the children? And this is Kristen from Seattle, Washington.
No, Kristen, this is answerable with 2 words: the sexual revolution. If an adult cannot have unfettered, sexual and romantic happiness, then we don't talk or care about the children. That's lip service. Dr. Jennifer Robach Morse wrote the foreword to my book. She's with the Ruth Institute, and she does a brilliant job explaining the divorce industrial complex, I think she calls it. It is so...
The divorce industrial complex.
Yes, yes. And it's this, and the divorce fantasy world, I think she uses that term too, that everyone's going to be happy as long as the grown-ups are happy in their romantic lives. And that's the whole story of the sexual revolution. You deal with abortion all the time. As long as everyone can control how their sexuality is going and what we do and who we're with, and it doesn't matter. Everyone else will fall into line, except that the casualties are always the children, always the children. But we won't touch it because it is about sex. Divorce is about sex because marriage is about sex. I think it was Peter Kraft who said, if it didn't have something to do with sex, we would have outlawed it long ago. If the same social implications happened for drinking a certain type of drink or anything else, we would have outlawed that product or that drink or that action. But because it touches on sex, it's sacrosanct. And the children have to go along with what the adults decide.
Which is the highest rung, finally for conversion, the toughest place is not even some of the doctrinal issues. It's about sexuality,
birth control,
self-discipline, mastery of your being. So chastity is a lifelong pursuit of the integration of your sexual being, and it involves everything. So this is the last thing to say, I submit to the natural law and to the teaching of the Catholic Church. Sexuality and sex apart from children. So we speak a lot now about redefining marriage, and so we think about this thing of same-sex couples and so on. But marriage was redefined long before this. This redefining of marriage. It's been redefined, maybe not under the Supreme Court, like we have with the marriage with same-sex couples. But I mean, divorce is about the redefinition of marriage. Divorce isn't a part of marriage, of the consent, of the identity of marriage, which is making one another irreplaceable, making one another permanent. And so those are the commitments. So then we say, no, it doesn't have to be permanent. And it's really not about children. You don't, and this is where we've gone with the same sex thing. You don't have to have children. No, No, marriage is about the conceiving of children and being irreplaceable and permanent for the sake of that child, and keeping the species going in a healthy environment. No, it's not that anymore.
Right. So
and that began with divorce.
You've taken the things that are actually intrinsic to marriage that can't be separated from what marriage is, and yeah, you've just taken those out. And then, but what do you have? Well, you have a mess.
Right.
You have this
and you
destruction.
have no fault divorce.
No fault divorce.
Which just kind of gives me permission to come in and go out. And if it's not good for me, I'm out.
Yes.
You know, because words are, I'm done.
Right.
Well, no, you're not done.
Yeah.
You don't get to be done. I don't get done to being your mother.
Right.
And I don't get done to being your wife. We are permanent till death do we part.
Right.
And this culture, God forbid that we would say, birth control is good for us, abortion's good for us, divorce is good for us. It's all fruit from the same tree.
Same rotten tree.
And it's all a lie.
And
it's all destroying life, marriage, and family.
And the children catch the brunt of it. Joe, let's take this email.
It says, my son and his wife are going through a very messy divorce. My heart breaks for what my 3 grandchildren are going through. What can I say or do for them to help them during this terrible transition? And this is a grandma from Roanoke, Virginia.
Oh, goodness. That's the toughest question, because I even asked the contributors, you know, what would you say to even children or adults now who are going through the divorce? And for the children, even they said, what can we say? We don't know what to say. It's so devastating. All we can do is pray for you, and please know it's not your fault, and stay close to Jesus and Mary. But there's no sugarcoating what's going to happen. They can't tell them it's going to be fine. And so this poor grandmother, you know, just be there for them. Maybe when, and again, I don't know how contentious it is and if you're allowed to have these conversations, but when you talk to your grandchildren, especially as they grow, be that acknowledgement, if nothing else. Again, acknowledge that this was an injustice as best you can without obviously alienating yourself, because this is a sticky wicket. There's no way to make this go okay. And maybe give your child and spouse this book and say, could you please look what's going to happen to your children?
I think it's so critical. You know, I think again of our context working at a crisis pregnancy center. So we have some people coming to us, thank God they come to us, some know where we stand regarding abortion, 40% don't know, so they're considering abortion. And what we do is just listen to them, empathize with them, but then we finally say, let me tell you what abortion is and what abortion does. Let me explain it to you medically, scientifically, not even religiously, but let me tell you what this is and what this looks like and the implications for you and what this will look like, what your child will look like when this is done. We have to do the same thing. If we know people, friends and family that are thinking about divorce, get this book, Primal Loss, and say, this is what the children of divorce are saying. You need to understand, when you say the word divorce, this is what it looks like. This is what you're about to do. This is the implications for you. This is what it looks like down into the future. This is what your kid's gonna look like, mentally, emotionally, identity, faith-wise, and so on. Don't do this to yourselves and to your children. These are the facts. This is like a science, what takes place. So it's important that we get to people and we tell them, because that's love. So I'm sure there's many people out there saying, well, you're just laying guilt on them. Not guilt, I'm just telling the truth about what abortion looks like and what it does and what divorce does. Please, we want to help you. We're all here to help you in any way to stay unified. Let's pause at this point. We're going to carry you over to the final segment. The book is Primal Loss, Now Adult Children of Divorce Speak. We'll be right back. More to come. There is hope. Please don't go away.
Welcome back. Well, you are an important part of our EWTN family, and we would love for you to join us live right here on At Home. You could be a member of our studio audience. All you need to do is contact the EWTN Pilgrimage Department, send them an email, pilgrimages@ewtn.com, give them a jingle at 205-271-2966, and make that dream come true. Well, right now we're going to go straight to Rome to hear from Joan. Joan, what do you have for us today?
Well, greetings from Rome to all of you at home, and I'm back from vacation, and it's really good to be at home with you all. A lot is happening in Rome these days after the, should we say, summer papal pause. And one of the big events of this season is the annual diaconate ordination at the Pontifical North American College. In fact, right behind me at St. Peter's Basilica this morning, 32 new men were ordained to the diaconate, 31 from 28 dioceses in the United States, and 1 from Sydney, Australia. Now, they were ordained by a former rector of the North American College, Bishop James Checchio of Metuchen. Now, in many ways, an ordination is linked to our very program because the family is the focus of our program, and the family is an integral part of the birth and growth of a vocation to the priesthood or religious life. In fact, Saint Josemaria Escriva once said, "Those called by God owe 90% of their vocation to their parents. The family is the seedbed of vocations." Indeed, it is the family atmosphere in which religious vocations are born and bred. And if you think about it, the family that goes to Mass together, says grace before meals, prays the Rosary together, even when members of a family volunteer at a parish, this cannot help but nourish a vocation to the priesthood or religious life. And to be honest, this is what I've heard over the years from all the young men I've known at NAC. At least 9 out of 10 seminarians told me their family life, the example, the prayer life of their parents was important, was critical to their own vocations. And we have to pray today for families because, as one priest has said, Catholic parents who want to produce vocations for the Church have to be ready to be heroically countercultural. The world appears designed at the moment to thwart people, especially young people, from even entertaining the thought of dedicating their lives to God. So on that note, I just want to say, let's pray for these deacons. We're going to pray for their families, for those who educate them. In fact, let's pray for all deacons and priests. Time's up here, so back to you at home.
Joan, so good to see you. You're looking well, and thanks so much for your teaching on the family, the Church's teaching on the family. Leila, this has been an awesome conversation, and you have a couple of chapters in here. Chapter 7, the role of faith in healing, and then Chapter 10, stories of hope. So share with us a little bit about faith, about hope, about what you've learned.
Right. Because, you know, nothing happens without God's permission. So we know that he can redeem anything that happens, any sin. My bishop, Bishop Thomas Olmsted, wonderful bishop, he has said that this suffering of children of divorce is a suffering that isn't allowed to be called suffering, but that we have to name it so that we can bring it to the cross of Christ, and there it can be redeemed. Right. And if it's redeemed, then we can go forward in joy and peace. And so a lot of the participants, most of the participants are Catholic, and they talk a lot about, and they weren't necessarily Catholic even in childhood, but a lot of them have been, have converted in adulthood. And they find such healing in the sacrament of reconciliation. The Eucharist is huge. Coming to the faith and an understanding of marriage, because you know they came from confusion about marriage. Even those who were from Catholic households, then it's really confusing when you see this breakup. Right. But when they come to understand it and own it and realize, okay, this is how God designed it. It's so beautiful. There is healing in knowing the truth. There is healing in the sacraments. The chapter 10 is particularly, it's some people's favorite chapter because it is a chapter of hope.
Stories of hope.
Yes. So it's not the 70, it's now other stories of other people who've overcome really difficult marital situations. So everything that caused these people's parents to divorce, well, we're seeing a whole chapter on how people overcome those very same problems. And so that chapter is just chock full of hope that you can redeem a marriage, you can overcome a hardship. A cross is going to come in every marriage. Sometimes heavy, heavy crosses, but they can be overcome. And the stories, especially at the end of life of some of the parents who made it through, to have that intact family when one of the parents passes away, or just beautiful stories. And so my next project is going to be to collect more of those types of stories, just stories of hope, to know, so that other people can, maybe if they're having a difficulty in their marriage, they can know that every situation, and they can look up their own situation, oh, it can be healed. There can be something done, something redemptive can happen here, because nothing is past God's
And these
power.
stories of hope are not only for the primary people, impacted, the children, but they're stories of, hey, you don't have to go down this course, or you really did, and you led the way in this. There's hope for you, there's mercy for you, there's hope for you, there's confession for you.
Absolutely.
And your life being reconciled to God as much as that is possible.
Absolutely. And we as a community need to do better as far as supporting
Yes.
marriages and saying, if some friends are going to get divorced or say, not on my watch. We will support you in any way we can. Tell us what we need to do, but we're not going to just hand your marriage over as a community to the devil, essentially.
Because the way it gets portrayed is, I just want to make you happy. And that's not what's making you happy. Sometimes making someone happy is telling them the hard, cold truth. And if you stood at a Catholic wedding and said, we will, then you also need to be that person that's going to go up to that son or daughter or brother, sister or friend and speak your voice, because you will be held accountable. You said we will. Well, we have to be that for one another.
Absolutely.
And that can only happen within the church.
Leila, thank you so much for stepping out and writing this book, Primal Loss. Just so important to be the voice of the voiceless, for giving them a place to speak. And I do believe this is going to be a great contributor to building a new culture of life and a culture of marriage. Thanks for being with us today. The book again is Primal Loss, The Now Adult Children of Divorce Speak. Let's have hope in the Lord, in the strength of His might. Let us wed ourselves more fully to Jesus Christ, the ultimate groom. Let us know that God could take every evil and turn it to good, the curse into a blessing. He can take death and turn it into life. His will is for redemption for all. God bless you. God bless all of your loved ones. Keep it on EWTN. Bye now.